Geekology. I'm David Spear.
And I'm Sven Harvey.
And tonight we're going to cover the Star Trek, the official Starships collection, issue 20 and 21. Now, one of the bits of feedback we've had from our viewers is that we don't really mention the magazines very much. Now, I said way back when we did our very first review that as far as I'm concerned, I'm buying the ship. The magazine is a Brucey bonus. It's just a little extra thing. But, you know, if people are really interested in it, maybe we should cover that.
I mean, to be fair, we have picked out when there's been something particularly interesting in the magazines. So.
Yeah, I would say we have, but we do... I mean, I've got to admit, I get them. I tend to look at the shit. I flick through the magazine.
The thing is a lot of this information we already know from a lot of them, isn't it? So that's probably we're a little different from a lot of people getting this magazine, because most of the information we've had from the various
sources over the years,
after Star Trek and so on and so forth,
which is actually causing a few arguments we've ever had, and I'm sure that we'll get to that in a second. So
I've been looking at the magazine for the Vor'cha class Klingon Attack Cruiser. Again, nice to see, telling you how to put it on the stand properly.
Yeah. I like the fact that they've used both the CGI and model shots in the. Although that definitely looks like the Playmate toy to me.
Yeah, that one does. Yeah, I think that's off the front cover of the Playmates, but that's completely wrong.
That's
That looks like everything's been raised out far too far. But you know, what was interesting in here though is the fact that they did the whole rebirth of the Klingons. How they basically had to redesign everything for next gen and work out quite who the Klingons were.
I liked what you pointed out about Core.
Yeah, the fact that they've got a picture of Core from the original series. Would have been nice to have a picture of him from Deep Space Nine.
It would have, you know, the two makeup effects.
It's like, does that mean he got cured of the virus? But one thing that did stand out to me was this diagram of the ship from the various elevations, telling you what the bits were. Yeah, and the fact that some of it's wrong.
Yeah. Well, no, you see, this is the problem, because you went, this is wrong, and I looked at it and went, where's the other bridge?
Yeah.
It only mentions 2 bridges. There's a 3rd bridge.
Yeah.
And then you started quoting and I started quoting, and we rapidly realised that we're both quoting accurate source material from different time frames.
Yeah.
On the same class and name of vessel.
Yes, quite.
So we googled it, and that was not a lot of help. So we did it old school, and we cracked out some of the technical manuals and some of the big print specs. We didn't go to the FASA material purely on the basis that that's never been accurate. It's great, the artwork's very pretty.
Yeah, but it was designed specifically for playing the games.
Specifically for the games, and we found that we were both right.
Yes, which means there's going to be variations on the ship running around.
Yeah. However, we both agreed that we didn't like how they did it in the magazine.
Yeah, I mean, what it does say is it says you've got a forward bridge here, and it also says there's a flying bridge here. Flying bridge.
Now, I always thought it was strange that the Klingons called it a tactical bridge, because as far as I'm concerned,
that's what it was called.
It's a Klingon vessel. It's all tactical.
Yeah, but what's interesting is that there's also earlier versions of the ship that suggested that this section here had its own bridge.
Well, yeah, and that it was a separate vessel.
Yeah, this triangle bit can actually come off and become a scout vessel. Also, though, originally it was designed so this entire forward section is in fact separatable
as a weapon platform.
As a weapon platform, and you could switch it out with other weapon platforms and so on and so forth.
Yeah, because there were arguments about whether it would still be a grade of ship, because they literally unbolt that piece and bolt the next one on. Yeah. And it just gives it a different tactical ability in certain situations.
Not that we never used it. We never saw an alternative. So it was originally conceived and originally introduced in Next Gen and in the Next Gen technical manual. This entire forward section was a gun. Yeah. That's it. It was just a gun. So to then say it has a bridge makes very little sense, because originally it was suggested that this part here was the bridge.
Well, yeah.
So now it's got 2 bridges. So let's just assume that was an upgrade at some point.
I think it's fair to say, because Eaglemoss, whilst not always
Hmm.
completely on top of their game when it comes to this. they are using decent source material places. I think we're having a problem with different timelines for the ships.
Yeah.
And depending on where and what and how, it just
Quite. I mean, I've got a feeling that basically between Reunion, was it, that he first turned up in, and the Dominion Wars, basically the ship internal design has changed.
Yeah.
So we just accept it as that. It's like the D having all the changes over its lifetime.
Yeah.
So we're basically
operational lifetime of a starship.
What is distinctly wrong is saying the impulse engines are these sort of like coppery, brassy bits at the back, when it's clearly there. These are not impulse engines. The impulse engines are the impulse engines. Unless, of course, they're trying to suggest that those are the reactors that feed the impulse engines, but even then, they're a bit obvious to shoot at. So I'm not quite sure about that. But
so that covers the magazine.
Yeah.
let's do
wrong
the
with the rest of the
actual.
magazine, but it's just like, yeah, a lot of this we've seen before in the Next Gen Tech Manual and other sources. So yeah, I mean, it's not the first time we've seen that diagram, is it?
No.
So you know.
Okay, so
Great for new fans, not so much of us for being around. Those of us who have been around for 30 years.
what did you think of the actual model?
It's nice. I've already seen quite a bit of feedback on Facebook and places where people have had ones where the moulding doesn't seem to be sitting right.
It doesn't sit as flush on the inner part as well. See, for me, it'd be the gap in the nacelles again with the joining on of
but
the
some
nacelles.
people have seen images where this moulding's not complete.
Yeah.
It's a mess and it looks like it's battle damaged. Which fits a Klingon ship alright. But there's an awful lot of detail on there that's not picked out, which is a shame. I mean, you've got the navigational deflector hasn't been picked out.
No.
Either of them, or the rear one.
No. You know what? I'll forgive them for the rear one.
Yeah. I mean, they make a big thing about the copper parts on the outboard of the nacelles, and they're not being picked out. But again, it's a £10 model. What else are you going to get
this
on
is
there?
the problem with them.
Yeah.
I think that they are tremendously good value for money. Even when they're bad, they're still good value for money.
Because the thing is, at the end of the day, I mean, we're finding a lot of people are painting these, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're adding their own little details and basically customising them.
Yeah, they're treating them as base models.
Yeah, which is fair
for
enough.
the price.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I mean, it's got tampographs on the bottom and the top for the Klingon vessels, the Klingon symbols and so on and so forth. So I don't see a huge issue there.
No, I mean, I didn't really like the colour. I thought the colour was off. Very flat.
But then it's been multiple different colours.
Yeah.
So,
no, but this is it. When like you were saying, people are painting them. It's like, I can see why, and people can pick out more detail and all that. But as a standalone model, I quite liked it. I thought it was one. It was one of the stronger ones.
Now, what gets me is that model does seem awfully accurate. That CG image doesn't.
Not so much. Yeah.
That does not look right. It looks like everything's been exaggerated too much.
Well, if I was going on the old 1 to 10 scale graph on that, I'm going to give it a 7 because the nacelles don't join on to the body the way I'd like.
So we've moved the Vor'cha class out the way a little bit because we'll have a look at the Enterprise E. Looking at, this is the thing with the Enterprise E, the magazine for this is actually quite interesting because, as you would imagine, with First Contact coming out sometime after Next Gen, and actually quite a way into the Deep Space Nine run, the Enterprise E is not mentioned in any Next Gen or Deep Space Nine tech manuals or virtually anywhere, in fact.
There was very little information about the ship.
And because after the DS9 tech manual was done, which did cover the start of the Dominion War and had things like those Frankenstein ships and things like that, where they'd literally take half
a dozen
just stuck them together and get them out there to fight the war, kind of thing. For Voyager, there was no tech manual. For Enterprise, there was no tech manual, and so on and so forth. So we've not seen much about the E at all. So some of the interesting things in here, we already knew that the Enterprise E was one of the last physical models made, and is certainly the last Enterprise physical model made. And also the fact that the first CG version of it was just a scan of the ILM model.
Yeah.
Which was then
tweaked
an awful lot for Insurrection, and then some significant redesigns were put into it for Nemesis. I wasn't quite. I was aware that something had happened with the nacelles, but not to the degree that it turns out.
I didn't realise they'd considered giving her moving nacelles.
Yes, that's interesting. Now, I don't know how we've not heard that before.
Well, again, they have some interesting places for source material.
Again, it's an awfully nice magazine. Lots of bits and pieces from First Contact and Nemesis and Insurrection.
Although, funnily enough, the one picture in there did look like the Playmate reissue.
Yes, quite. I do find it interesting. They do mention the new First Officer, Commander Martin Madden, which was, of course, cut from Nemesis. So that's just kind of made that more canon again, hasn't it, in a way? But let's face it, Nemesis would have been a much better film if they'd put all the bits they cut back in it. And
yeah, I know, but the guy cleaning the editing room floor just didn't see fit to.
Then the director didn't see fit to know anything about Star Trek. But minor point.
We're doing the model, not the movies.
So here we have the E.
Again, not loving that.
Yeah, it's. I can't even tell which version of the E that is. That's another thing, is they go on about the fact that it's had all these refits, but there's no comparison. Yeah. I would have liked to have seen the comparison.
They could have quite easily done that.
This is how it looked in First Contact, this is how it looked in Insurrection, this is how it looked. That's a bit of a missed opportunity for me. They do a bit about the filming. There's a little bit here about the saucer separation, which we never saw again on screen. Which I thought was a bit of a surprise in First Contact. They talked about blowing up the ship instead of saucer setting it. Which is like, why did you saucer set it? They haven't got that far up yet, but there we go. But yes, there's a whole bit about designing the ship, and at one point it had forward sweeping nacelle struts, and they were looking at having the nacelles move up and down for when it goes into warp and star, like Voyager, but again, that would make it too much like the Voyager because it was already having a Voyager-esque.
The other thing is that from a logical point of view, Voyager would need to be able to lift those nacelles up for the size of it and for going into planetary atmosphere, which makes no sense because they always leave them flat when it goes down. Yeah. I thought you'd have them up. But a ship this size? No,
it would just be an extra area where things could be ripped off, to be honest. And when we were already talking about a ship that's been redesigned specifically to deal with the Borg. What I do find is they quite nice is they do underline the fact that the ship was already being built when the D was destroyed. Which of course it didn't have to be, otherwise you wouldn't have had it out so fast for First Contact to happen. So obviously it would have been the U.S.S. something or other, and then it got renamed the U.S.S. Enterprise 1701E, so there was actually going to be a ship in First Contact, the Enterprise name on it.
Okay, so you're happy enough with the magazine?
Yeah, it's fine.
See, again, I always think of it just as the bonus thing.
Yes,
the model
I know
is there. And I have to say, I really like this model. Now, anybody that's watched any of our previous videos knows that I tend not to like the glue they use for the nacelles, but on this one it really works, and the way that the red works through it is good. The attachment was fine. As far as I'm concerned, the only negative point to this particular one is that all the die cast is in the source section, which it isn't really a negative as such, but it has meant that how they join the body, for want of a better word, onto the saucer, you do get massive lines in the moulding. However, it's really well picked out. The paintwork on it is lovely. It looks, It's one of the strong ships. It's one of the strong.
I mean, I would be a little bit happier if they'd split it where the ship comes off.
Yeah, if they'd done it along the saucer line section.
Yeah. Because this is the thing is that I don't know if you can see very clearly, but basically this is where the saucer separation occurs, and there's actually a little bridge on the opposite side of the neck to where the captain's yacht is. So the neck actually comes into the middle of the saucer section to a degree. So the battle bridge is literally underneath the main bridge here.
Like Fireman's pole.
Yeah, literally.
Quick,
let's get down to the battle bridge. Avoid the Borg. But I'm trying to figure out which version of the ship this is.
See, you do that, and I'm just picking. You're just essentially doing this with this ship.
Yeah, and this is the thing. So I actually found myself imitating the movements.
I'm
from
pretty
First
sure
Contact.
that's the Contact one.
Yeah, I've just got to. I'm trying to remember what it looked like in Nemesis. I've got a feeling these nacelles.
Hasn't it got the shorter nacelles in Nemesis?
Yeah, it's got slightly shorter nacelles and they're a bit further forward. I think in Nemesis they're about here. Maybe
that's why that looks like the
half
First
centimetre
Contact
forward.
one then.
Yeah, this might. I mean, it looks First Contact-ish to me, but without having the three different versions of the E next to each other.
Yeah.
It's the E. It's going to be the E.
It's the E regardless.
What is interesting though is one thing in the magazine that I didn't realise is they had some ideas for how the ship was going to evolve for the film after Nemesis.
Yeah.
Which of course never happened, because one of the things that really is a shame is so much footage is missing out of Nemesis that they filmed. When you found out about Martin Madden, the new captain's chair with the buckles, and the fact that the ship was getting a major refit. So it would have been nice to see where they were going to go with that, but sadly we'll never know. What I do find interesting about the magazine is the fact there's no mention of Countdown.
No, none at all.
Which is canon. Because Countdown is completely canon because it leads into Star Trek 2009, which is a bit of a loss, I think, to be honest. Because it would have been nice to mention Captain Data and how
but
he
you see,
came
the
about
problem
and so on and
is
so forth.
not a lot of people like graphic literature.
No, quite.
Or let's give it its proper term, comics.
Yeah.
No, see, the thing is, I do. In my head, I have a very firm line, like Neil Gaiman.
Yeah.
Graphic literature. Anything with the word Star Trek on it, it's going to be a comic.
Yeah.
But it is an area that not a lot of people are into, so I can kind of understand why they wouldn't necessarily put it in there. It's not mainstream enough.
No, and I'm absolutely amazed so few people know it exists.
Considering how good the story arc is for it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, is it makes Star Trek 2009 make a bit more sense.
Only a smidge.
But anything helps, frankly. And it does give you the impression that the original timeline can keep going side by side.
The original definitely.
Or rather the timeline after First Contact. Well, we won't go into that whole thing because it just gets very confusing. So, I mean, this is the things I'd really love to see Countdown turned into a filmed version.
But that isn't the model.
I know.
We're talking about the model.
It's the ship, though.
I know.
But, it'd be nice to see a bit more information about that. But hey ho, maybe another time. Maybe we'll see some. Maybe when they do the jellyfish, they'll actually explain how the jellyfish was designed by Geordie LaForge.
We have to bear in mind that Canada is only up to its 4th issue.
Oh right. Okay.
So we are massively ahead of them at the moment. So, are you still happy with your subscription to the magazine?
Yes. In fact, I'm a bit more solidly now. I mean, considering we have had some quality issues recently, and they are sorting them out for us. Stargazer, when you have a complete one, is really, really nice.
Yeah.
Though a lot of people have actually said they think it's too thin. The saucer section is too thin, which I can kind of see. But I think, again, that's all down to camera angles and stuff like that, perhaps, and possibly personal taste.
Yeah. Well, we did get a video review from one of our viewers, essentially, and he was going, I think you've been a bit harsh. Here's what the special looks like, because evidently he felt we were a little harsher on the special than we should have been. I still stand by it. I think it all looks great in the set.
Yeah.
But, again, it's horses, of course, it's personal preferences.
But going back to this,
but the
we've
model
got to give it a
itself,
score.
Yeah.
It's a shame about that panel line being in a silly place, because that kind of doesn't make much sense. And I would have preferred it along here, as I said earlier. But other than that, I'm actually quite impressed with this. There's no really massive flaws. I mean, I'm trying to look at the writing, and some of the writing is so small.
It really is.
I'm like going, does it actually say United Federation of Planets?
Well,
I can't tell. It's a bunch of
to be
dots, as far as I
honest,
can tell.
I'm happy to give it an 8.5.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to give it a 9.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because all that's wrong is that panel line. And it just would have taken maybe a little bit more knowledge about the ship, because that's metal there. If that was plastic and this bit was metal, it just would have made a little bit more sense. But
Okay, well, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Thank you very much for watching. You can subscribe to us here on YouTube. You can follow us on both Facebook and Twitter, and there is, of course, the official Geekology website. I do strongly recommend that you add us on the Facebook, as we are running several competitions at the moment, and we've got more coming up.
Yeah.
So that looks good. Also, there are the live events coming up. Yes, well, we've got one confirmed, and we've got a couple planned further on down the line, so that'll be good. Only this time, I'll remember to get consent forms. They help, they do. Alright then, well, thank you very much, and good night.
Bye. Places have actually stated that the next special is the Vengeance, which has made me think I'm very glad I'm not getting the specials.
It's still part of the canon.
Yes, I mean I realise that, but it's too military, too battleshipy, too Section 31 for my taste. I don't like the idea of Section 31 existing in the first place, but to have a great big battleship that makes the Enterprise look like a duck in a pond is just a bit scary.
Interesting. Well, it's one of those. You know, you
absolutely.
If you want to complete the set, then
because it's not. I mean, this is the thing. Is the only things that worry me about certain elements of Star Trek is like everybody seemed to like the idea of the dreadnought ships, which never actually turned up in anything official. Simply because they really shouldn't have done. I didn't like the third nacelle on the Future Enterprise D.
I love that.
Yeah, I know you did, and the fact it's got a very big cannon on it now.
I know, it's totally wrong.
Yeah,
but it was entertaining.
I mean, if it's been refitted for a war situation, then yeah, I can kind of see it. The Defiant, I can kind of understand why the Defiant from DS9 is the way it is, but it's still technically a scout/escort vessel, not a battleship. So, and even the Excelsior, that was probably designed with battleship in mind by Harve Bennett, and his team. But at the end of the day, it was still an exploration vessel.
Exploration vessel.
So you know, any ship that isn't designed to be scientific or exploration in nature shouldn't be in Starfleet.
Well, again, it depends on how you define the Star Trek universe. If you're going purely with the ethos, yes, but on the other hand, if you look at it from a practical point of view, you will always need small ships to do small hops. You will need heavier armoured ships to do heavier armoured duties. There will always be war type ships because there will always be war type situations. For instance, it's all well and good sending an explorer vessel out to go and use a tractor beam on a specific asteroid going towards a planet, but how much easier is it to send up your warship that is really overpowered and can just push the damn thing out of the way?
I mean, this is the thing is that we're getting very much into the ethics of Star Trek here. It is early on. You had the Enterprise Constitution class was also referred to as a heavy cruiser.
Well, yeah, because there were dreadnought classes.
Yeah, but the dreadnought class was never shown, and you had frigates and destroyers and. But
again, it was Navy. It was
it was all Navy. And this, but most of that actually came from Faza, didn't it? It wasn't actually shown on screen.
No, it wasn't shown on screen. But if again, you're quoting technical manuals that were written well after. I mean, the names that me and you tend to quote from was from the original Classic Trek hardbound technical manual, which was later redone as a softback.
Yeah.
Shame, I really like that solid plastic follow. But all the names they got on them were just names from the American fleet at the time, with the ones that had also been used in the episode.
Yeah, I mean, what I do find quite interesting is Gene himself actually said that the original Enterprise was supposed to be, in fact, what was it, the Yorktown originally, wasn't it, in the original writing?
I can't remember.
Was that it was a ship that's primarily for exploration but was armed to the teeth just in case.
Just in case.
Which they tried to explore.
They said that as well.
Yeah, they tried to explore that in Enterprise, where they basically explained why so many weapons kept being added to it, because they kept basically having that backside handed.
Well, I mean, that's what Archer said, wasn't it? Yeah. It's like, how many weapons, you will need more.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing, this is the Enterprise D. This was an explorer vessel, I mean, it was purely explorer vessel. You had families on board, but it was over-armed, and none of it was ever used. It was basically, this ship could split and have 3 photon torpedoes that could launch 10 photon torpedoes a second, and multiple phaser rings that could go off at the same time.
Yeah, but it made no sense, because Worf only knew where the one button was at the time.
Whereas the ship could just, if you handed it over to the computer controller, you just obliterate everything.
You know what? I'm surprised they never did that.
Yeah, I know. It's quite strange. And the fact that the Galaxy class, was it the Venture? No, it wasn't the Venture, was it? The one that got destroyed, the Odyssey, the one that got destroyed by the Jem'Hadar, by a ship coming into its navigational deflector. Makes no sense. How would it get that close with a Galaxy class starship firing all of its weapons? It just wouldn't.
I think there's several role-playing scenarios that it could do it, but
I know what you mean.
It's one of those made for good
television,
/ bad television.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, I mean the whole Jem'Hadar. I mean, you know that one of the reasons I disliked DS9 was the whole Jem'Hadar war. It did not fit into my philosophy of Star Trek. Fine for television, great, woo, but.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. It's one of those separating out how you feel. I mean, my wife is not a Star Trek fan, and she finds it very, very weird when me and you talk about the beauty of a ship and the design of a ship and conceptually how Starfleet would work and what would hurt. You know, it drives her up the wall because she doesn't get it.
Whereas my wife at home is trying to work out how the shields work using the stuff she's learning about physics. So
the university's a wonderful thing.